So kind of go through the beginning. My name's Dominic Cortinas. Wanted to thank you for volunteering to be part of our budget committee. This is some of the practice that we're going to continue to do in the future. Just so you know, Mark is joining us today as a district advisory committee representative. So he's going to talk a little bit about the district through the lens of the DAC. That's what he's on their board as the vice chair. I'll kind of go around to do introductions. So it's official. My name is Dominic Cortinas. I'm the deputy director at NCPRD. And I get to work and oversee the finance department. So I'll let them introduce themselves. So.
I'm Callie Gantner. I'm the financial analyst with NCPRD, and I work a lot on budget and audit and daily operations a little bit.
I'm Lydia Larson. I'm an accountant with North Clackamas Parks and Rec, and I work with Callie and help her out with the budget and day-to-day operations.
And I'm Kia Selly. I'm the district director for NCPRD.
Sean Cannon, budget committee member.
David Cheats is on, budget committee member.
And Luca Dorito, budget committee member, just started my second term and was formerly on the DAC actually, Mark. I was voted in when it first came back into play, and then I kept having children, so I didn't have the time for it, but I wanted to stay on the budget committee, so I'm glad to still be here in some capacity.
And then we do have a couple members that are not in attendance today. We are recording this to share this meeting with them so they can look at it and have any input that they think is helpful to us. So with that, I'll turn it over to Callie. She'll lead us into through the budget committee PowerPoint and answer any questions that you guys might have either during the presentation, or we have a section reserved for Q&A at the very end. So, all right.
Well, introduction to budget. Let's see, so we already introduced ourselves. Oh, next slide. We're gonna have to work here in tandem. I have it on my screen, but it's over there. So we'll send this out and we'll have it posted online, but if you ever need to email us, you'll be able to like click on all of those are linkable to our next slide. So the basics of the budget committee, it's made up of two equal parts, 5 members of the county commissioners, and then 5 members of the public. So we have 10 members. And in order to have a successful meeting, you have to have a quorum. So that means one more than half. So we have to have six members to have a quorum. So our budget committee we actually have 9 members. One of them did resign at the end of April. So we do have 9 members to move forward this year. So that's great. And then we have the budget committee webpage. Do you want to pull up the county one? The county webpage has agendas, packets, and previous video recordings. If you ever wanted to, and this will be linked in the PowerPoint too. If you want to scroll down. It has the budgets under agency and districts. There's a section for NCPRD, and it will have like our previous budget presentation video notices if you ever wanted to go back and look at other information. So each budget committee member can serve for 3 year terms. So all of you are now appointed through 2027. So that's great. We have 2 members expiring as of this June. And so we'll start a recruitment for that. And then our official budget committee meeting is in late May every year. So this is our current board of county commissioners. So they should all be present at our meeting in May. We have Tootie Smith, Ben West, Paul Savas, Martha Schrader, and Mark Scholl. I think a couple of them are up for re-election this year, so this may change in the years to come. Okay, next slide. And then there's all your information. If you ever need to email each other, we have your emails linked there also. And then it has everybody's terms, your community you represent, and then when your term. Okay, next slide. And so this is the general, the different phases of the budget. So, and we'll go into each of these in more detail, but basically we start with the requested budget. We have our budget committee meeting where we discuss the proposed budget. By the end of that meeting, we approve the budget. And then at a later date, we take it to get adopted by the board. And then if there are any changes needed during the year, we'll have a supplemental budget. Okay, next slide.
Are those dates, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
The May 28th, I know when we spoke last, it was still TBD, is that set now?
I think that's more on track. I want to say that I think that'll be the date for sure.
Okay,
Yes.
we
It
gotta
sounds
share a
like the-
calendar. with my wife.
Oh, yes,
Sure.
of course, yeah.
It's on the big calendar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so this is our annual budget cycle. For us, it feels like we're in a budget state all year long, but we really start getting to work in October. We start updating, the documents we use. We start reaching out to staff to think about our current year-end projections, what they want to work on in the next budget cycle. And in January is of the official budget kickoff. By January, we pretty much already have a good idea of what our basic budget will be. In February, we start entering our budgets into our budgeting software called OpenGov. In March, we submit our budgets to the county administrator. And in April, we work on our PowerPoint for the budget meeting. And then in May, we present the budget to the budget committee and hopefully it's approved. And then at that point, in June, we move it to the Board of County Commissioners where it is adopted. And we have to have it adopted by June 30th of each year. And then July through September, we work on any, well, all year round, we can work on supplemental budgets. July through September, we work on well, we have to get our taxes assessed with the assessor as well. But this says adopted budget on the NCPRD website and sent to GeoPub. Next slide. Okay, so phase one, this is the department requested budget phase. And I think this is where most of the work gets done. This is where staff put a lot of time in seeing what their program needs. We prepare our year-end projections. That helps us determine how much we have to start the next year with. And we update all of our budget materials. We also have a budget proposal form. That's a fillable form online. It's available all year round. And then any proposal we receive between December 16th through December 15th of the following year, we review and we consider it in the next budget. So a great example of this is Ardenwald Park. It was a soft surface trail. We received received quite a few forms to make it a concrete trail. And so we were able to upgrade that this year as a result of the form. So, okay, next slide. So phase 2 and 3 makes more sense to have on one slide because it kind of happens at the same meeting where we have our budget committee meeting. We receive the budget document. Well, you'll receive that about a month prior to the budget meeting, but you'll hear the budget message or hear the budget presentation. We will hear and consider any public comment. And then we can discuss and revise the proposed budget as needed. And then phase 3 is approving the budget, which happens at the end of our budget committee meeting, and we approve each tax levy. And then we recommend the budget for adoption to the BCC. So we've already mentioned this, but we're going to meet in late May, to May 28th, will probably be our meeting date. And there's a requirement that we all attend in person to this meeting and we'll get you the address, the Red Soils campus in Oregon City. Okay, and BCC adopts the budget, and this has to happen before June 30th each year. This year, that meeting is scheduled for June 20th. Nobody's required to be there except for probably Kia. So adopting the budget, we officially make the appropriations to spend the money and impose our tax levy. Okay, in phase 5, this is changes after budget adoption. This is where we would do any supplemental budgets, and a supplemental budget. We can either increase or decrease appropriations, so that's what we've had adopted in our last phase. And we can create a new appropriation category or create a new fund. Departments must make changes to the budget before overspending, and the budget team accepts supplemental budgets quarterly. That's just a county process. Supplemental budgets quarterly. And changes over 10%, we have to publicize and hold a public meeting on. And anything under 10%, we can move forward to the board. Every supplemental budget needs to go to the board, but I know that there's been discussion that if we were gonna have a quarterly supplemental budget, we would gather the budget committee meeting and possibly discuss it so that everybody's aware and we're being more transparent.
Sorry, another question.
Yeah.
In the last couple of years, how often have you guys had supplemental?
They're not very common for us. If anything, it's 1 or 2 a year. Last year, we didn't have any. This year, we're gonna have 1. So I think we do a really good job of budgeting for the year, and so we don't have to do them very often.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good work.
Okay, so if you want to review any past budget committee materials, we have previous budget presentations linked and books linked, and the current adopted budget is linked. And then if you want more references, we have a link to the state of Oregon's local budget law, which is what we try to abide by. And then the county's budget information, and then a link to our NCPRD finance page. And we have that pulled up so you can see what that looks like. And so here, the budget development is where we have our budget proposal form. And the next section is all of our previous budget documents and our audited financial statements and any budget notices, and then our current budget committee. And you can always reach us all at that finance NCPRD email too. Lots of good information there. Okay, so next we're gonna go over the terms used in the NCPRD budget. Appropriations are the amount budgeted to spend. And so that is what we would, if we needed to do a supplemental budget, we need to change our appropriations. Capital outlay is a budget category for items having a value of $5,000 or more and a useful economic life of more than 1 year. An expenditure is an outlay of funds which is chargeable for a specific period, usually within 1 fiscal year. Reserves are funds set aside for future expenditures, and we are not able to touch reserves in the current year. So that's just money set aside, and at the end of the year, it flows into our beginning fund balance.
So it's kind of like our savings account, correct?
Yes. And oftentimes it's either restricted or unrestricted. So like if we have like a resolution or something from the board that says that we're going to spend, this amount of money on this, it would be restricted reserves. So there's that bit of information too. The fiscal year is the 12-month period to which the annual operating budget applies. Our fiscal year is July 1 through June 30th of each year. Our revenue is income received by the district in support of the program or services to the community. Our total resources equals cash available plus revenues, and total requirements equals appropriations plus reserves. So to have a balanced budget, our resources have to equal requirements. Okay, so NCPRD general fund revenue sources. Our general fund is made up of 5 different lines of business. Our first line of business is the administration. And it's made up of admin and marketing, and the revenue that admin receives is property taxes and special use permits. Our next line of business is program and community centers, which houses recreation, aquatics, and sports. And so most of the revenue there is, of course, class registrations, lessons, facility rentals, contributions and donations. Older adult services is our social services, nutrition and transportation programs. And they receive a lot of social services funding, contributions, donations, and then they also have a travel program. Our parks, trails, and natural areas is the park maintenance and natural areas programs, and their revenue is mostly intergovernmental agreements with other programs and facility rentals. Planning and development is our last line of business, and their revenue is mostly just grants. They also receive some SDC revenue from time spent on SDC eligible projects. Okay, NCPRD general fund expenditures, personnel services. So this isn't actually a line you would see in our budget because we're considered contract employees with the county. And so it's actually within materials and services, but we actually pull it out quite a bit in our budget just so that you can see. So our personnel expenses are known. So materials and services, this is everyday expenses, utilities, supplies, program materials, anything you can think of. Transfers, we initiate transfers between NCPRD funds. We have 6 funds, 5 of them we use. So we have our general fund, 3 SDC funds, and our capital projects fund. We also have a debt fund, but we don't have any debt, so we don't use that fund. So we do transfers between our funds. And so we transfer funds from our general fund to our capital projects fund for capital expenses not covered by SDCs or other revenue sources. And we transfer from SDCs to the general fund for time spent on SDC eligible projects. And then SDCs to the capital projects fund for SDC eligible capital expenses. And so our transfers in and transfers out always balance. Let's see, allocated costs. Allocated costs are county-wide costs that we incur as part of the county. It's for services like records management, human resources, payroll, technology services, legal, and contingency is money set aside in the current budget cycle for any unknown expenses. And then reserve for future expenditures are, of course, those reserved funds that we, for anything in future that we cannot spend in the current fiscal year. Okay, and capital outlay is for the, any expense over 5,000 and has an estimated useful life of 1 year or more. And so capital outlay is broken up into 2 different programs for us. We have our capital projects, and then we have our capital repair and replacement program. So capital projects is the cost of planning, design, construction for our major projects like Concord or the park at the Justice property. Capital repair and replace is anything to repair or replace an asset. So we just replaced the playground at Alma Myra. Let's see, system development charges. System development charges, or SDCs as we call them frequently, are those one-time fees charged to new developments or significant redevelopments to help pay a portion of the increased cost to meet park and recreation needs. They are charged at the time of development for both residential and commercial properties within the district's boundaries. And they can only be spent on new development and cannot be used to maintain existing assets or operations. Oregon state law authorizes us to spend or assess SDCs and spend them, but they also control how and when and what improvements we can spend SDCs on. We have 3 different zones, and our current methodology is that we spend SDCs on projects within certain zones. And so we don't, if we have a project that's in zone 3, we don't take, unless it's a district-wide asset, we don't take funds from other zones to spend on that project. So, yeah. Okay, the last slide, this is our budget input form. This is the, and we just showed the link online, but this is really the best way for us to receive input on the budget. Because of Oregon budget law, we really can't talk about the current budget until it's a public document. So, we like getting these, especially throughout the year, because if you're like somewhere and you're like, wow, we really need a bench right here, or we really need, you know, this would be a great place for basketball. I don't know. This form is the best way because it reaches us and we can bring it to the right people to make it happen or consider it to move forward. So, whether or not they're funded in the current budget, the next budget, we have them and we review them every year. So, yeah. Okay, next slide. I think we've reached the end. Whipped it out. Okay, we have questions on the slide, but I think next is, it's Mark's turn if he wanted to talk about the District Advisory Committee.
Well, thank you. This is Mark Elliott, and you're seeing a picture of me, but for some reason I'm not able to actually show you my face. I guess I'm not allowed to do that for some reason. So my apologies, you're just looking at my picture from a couple of years ago. So thank you for allowing me to speak with you folks for a few minutes, and I hope that one of these days I'll be able to meet all of you. I am currently the vice chair of the District Advisory Committee and was voted into that position last July. And so I've been on the committee now, this is really just finishing my first year. So it's my pleasure to fill you in just a few things about what the District Advisory Committee, what we do and our purpose, and a few just thoughts and observations about the budget process, if that makes sense. So first of all, you likely know that NCPRD was founded in 1990 by a public vote. And at that time, the tax rate for the district was set at around 54 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. And that tax rate, to my knowledge, has not changed since that founding in 1990. At that time, because the district was being represented by the Board of County Commissioners acting as the Board of Directors, it was important to have an advisory committee that provided input to the Board of County Commissioners / Board of Directors on local issues and local concerns and local aspirations about the park system. And so that District Advisory Committee was developed here recently, just been kind of reconstituted in the last few years to include 5 sub areas throughout the district. The district, serves about 105,000 residents. So we divided the district up into 5 sub areas, with each sub area having 2 district sub members who represent them. We have a total of 11 District Advisory Committee members, and then we have a Board of County Commissioner liaison who is Paul Sabas. And so we feel the importance of the District Advisory Committee is important because only one of our commissioners actually lives within the district, the other 4 do not. And so there is a desire to be sure that the 105,000 residents that make up the district and who pay the tax levy are properly represented to the Board of County Commissioners. So I think that's kind of an overview of the committee. We meet monthly and have some subcommittees that are working on a few different things. But most recently, we have just been meeting as a group monthly. So one of our major items that the District Advisory Committee is participating in is the systems plan, which Kia may have mentioned to you. I'm not sure if you did or not, Kia, but this is a plan that is also known as a master plan. We call it a systems plan, but master plan is also another name for that. And this systems plan is going through a pretty extensive process by a professional consultant out of San Francisco is assisting the district in doing this. It has many parts and pieces of it, including a very generous or very involved community involvement process to get information from the public on their needs and wants and aspirations for the district. That systems plan will then be will culminate in a new systems plan that is going to hopefully be adopted by the Board of County Commissioners or the Board of Directors, which will replace the current master plan that the district has that was created in 2004. So there's a good need for us to update it 20 years later. I think there's been a lot of little amendments and things made to it, but this is a very important part of how we see the district moving forward. And to my knowledge, that it is an important part to have an updated and current master plan or a systems plan in order for us to be eligible for certain grants and certain, what is it? Help me with this, Kia. When we go out to get bonds, is that right? Certain bonds do require that you have an updated master plan. So we see this as kind of multiple reasons to do this. And so that is something that's in process and a very important part of what the DAC is working on. And each of the DAC members is participating in this through the person, and I forget her name, Kia, just off the hand, that's really spearheading this for the district as far as the community engagement process.
Erin Real is a project manager.
Yes, that's right, Erin. Yes, that's right. Thank you. So I wanted to just make a couple comments about our tax rate, if that's appropriate, and a little bit about what I understand at the importance of the budget process that you're going through now. NCPRD is a special district, which is really, to my understanding, pretty much funded by our tax rate. We do receive some SDC monies, which is very minuscule. If you look actually at our budgets, it's very small. According to the most recent study that's done by our consultant, growth in our district is somewhere about 1.2% over the last 10 years. And so you can imagine that with that kind of growth, our SDCs are very, very small compared to someone like Happy Valley, which might have a very high growth rate. And so there's a lot of new construction and new things that are happening there that assist them in putting together quite a bit of SDC money. That really isn't our situation. And so we really rely on other sources in order to pay not only for operations, but also for capital project money from the county. Unlike certain cities like the city of Portland and city of Wilsonville, those parks departments do receive general fund money in addition to their park levies. In our case, we only receive tax monies from the tax levy, and we do not, from our tax base, but we do not receive any money from any particular levies. I don't believe there are any tax levies currently that are a part of NCPRD. So I think for many members of the DAC, we feel that there's some need for maybe trying to change some of the way in which the district is structured. And I'm just telling you this as kind of a point of reference for how we're looking at things in the future. And that is perhaps to try to change that tax rate through a public initiative that would be voted on by the district members to see if we're able to raise that tax rate. And we see that the systems plan is a really integral part of that in order for us to lay out to the public what it is that they want, and if what they want, how much that really costs. And so that is something that we hope to be able to work on in the future. The other part that we're kind of aspiring towards is self-governance. And that would be governance by a board of directors that is directly elected by members, voting members of the public in the district, rather than being represented by the Board of County Commissioners. So those are some things that, you know, we have tried to do in the past through voter initiatives, and those have not passed in past years. But it's something that we thought is an important thing to educate the public about and to look at as a possible potential. The last thing I'll mention is that there are some folks that are very interested in developing a Parks Foundation. And this would be an organization that is completely separate and independent of the Parks Department, but would raise money on behalf of the Parks Department in order to fund special projects or special things on behalf of the Parks Department. Many Parks Group departments have such a foundation. You know, Kia is actually part of the Portland Parks Foundation as a board member. And that Parks Foundation does raise quite a bit of money for the Portland Parks Department for specific projects that perhaps the Parks Department is not otherwise able to fund. So that's kind of our interest in the future, maybe trying to set that up. So I guess that's about all I would have to say, and I certainly would be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Mike, this is Luke. I want to say I was part of the DAC when it came back into existence a few years ago, and it's heartwarming to hear that you guys are still fighting the same fights and battling for those things that I know were front of mind for us back. It was like 2020 or something. It's just great to see that you guys are continuing to strive for those things and to see that we're slowly moving forward. I know that the DAC can be a lot of work and a lot of time, and there's some really, really committed volunteers there that really give a damn, which is why they're putting in all this time and effort. So please pass my regards on to everybody. I know there's a lot of familiar faces still on that committee, and just to keep up the good work, because we do. I think NCPRD, its greatest strength is just how much we squeeze out of this very small tax rate. And I think like they do absolute wonders, and we don't have the support that a lot of other parks and recs have. So just to continue pushing that as a DAC and as a budget committee, we're always there with you to move forward together. But just keep up the good work. I know it can be a little bit tense and stressful at times. And you guys are very much the sponge. The public will call in and throw ideas at you and point blame and point fingers and everything. So I know you guys go through a lot. So just thank you as a resident, but also as a member of the budget committee for everything you guys are doing.
All right, well, thank you. Any other questions that anyone might have? All right, well, Kia, anything else that you would like me to offer out?
No, I think that's a great summary, Mark. Thank you so much. And I'm glad you talked about some of the nuts and bolts, some of the things that the budget committee should know, and then provided some perspective as a DAC member. So thank you for taking both of those approaches. It's really helpful.
Okay. So next on the list is assigning roles for the budget committee meeting. And so the flow of the meeting, we have a script for everybody to read, and we do need to assign the chair, which I think, Luca, you were the chair last time, if I remember correctly. So we need a chair and we need a secretary. So does anybody in the room want to volunteer for one of those roles?
Why's everyone looking at me?
Okay.
I'll do either.
Up to you guys.
Okay.
Great.
I did it 2 out of my 3 years as chair, so if you wanna have the experience, it's
I
pretty
would
fun.
love to be the chair.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
What's the secretary? Is it just, I assume it's not note taking.
as long as it's not minutes.
Yeah, what is it officially? Because
I don't know, honestly,
Like you're just
Let's go.
seconding the, like
seconding.
just second everything with him. You just have to agree with him, basically.
I'm
That's pretty much the flow, yeah.
He knows where I live.
Yeah.
Just follow the script, you can't go wrong.
So then,
Excellent.
Luca, would you like to offer the motion? That's at the end where we have the big, it's a big paragraph and you have to, the budget, which is, then the $1 million range.
Those are number, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
okay,
so you would read the motion. Is that what you're asking? him to do,
Yeah.
To read the motion, and
Yeah.
we'll print it out for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Happily.
yeah, we'll have the whole script printed with everybody's name and what to say and.
Yeah.
And all that. The only thing that's not scripted is if we have comments or questions or changes or public comments.
And then we look at you, right?
And I'll do my very best, with Kelly by my side. Yeah,
Okay, and then how would you all like to receive the budget? So we're hoping to have it finalized next week on May 8th. And we are thinking it will be handed out, distributed early May 9th. And so we can do it a few different ways. It'll be virtual online and we can send you a link to that, or we can print a copy. We can have it mailed, delivered, or you can pick it up here at the aquatic park. So
can you also send a PDF if they wanted to have it
Yes.
like on an iPad or on a
Yep.
notebook so that you could scroll through it?
we're very flexible.
Yeah, email.
Email.
Be perfect.
Gmail, yeah.
Yeah.
I really like having it printed, I know it's not a
No,
requirement.
that's okay.
I do like having
I
it.
like a printed copy
Yeah.
as well.
I'd be there with you, but I'm working on the Milwaukee, city of Milwaukee budget right now, and I learned a 3-ring binder and a 2-year-old.
Just. I have them all without really high. end.
Yeah.
All the year, all the budgets got this, so.
Yeah, it was like, yeah.
How would you like the delivery of that? We
I can
could,
pick it up here at the
are
board.
you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
You sure?
Yep.
Okay.
And. All right, so last on the list is any questions, comments, or concerns?
Can you explain why the personnel is included in the materials and supplies? Like, I understand
Mhm.
your contractors with the county, but that just seems really confusing to me.
Yeah, so,
We're materials and services, right?
Materials and services.
So we're
sorry,
a
not
service.
Supplies, yeah.
Effectively.
yeah, we're a component unit of the county, and so when they produce their budget, all of our personnel expenses, you would see like wages and benefits and all that. We just condense it down and track it all on our books, I guess you could say, like
Okay.
all lumped together. So
That
it
makes
is tracked separately between the various items. It just, because of the way we function and our classification with them, that's how it's labeled.
But you're not actually like contract orders, like you're not
Right.
signing it, okay, that's what I was
Yes,
like, that's the
yeah.
part I was just couldn't quite get my head around, so that makes
Your
sense.
employees of the county.
We are.
Well, and if I could just interject too, that doesn't mean that the personnel are free, right? Because you have to reimburse the county for what it costs for your personnel, right? Okay.
Right, right, exactly.
Thank you for walking, but yeah, just out of simplicity, that makes a lot of sense.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Just personal question, just curious from what Mark mentioned. Is Paul the one county commissioner that lives in the district, or is this someone else?
Director Savas, correct.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's a commissioner and he's a board of director for NCPRD. So yes,
Okay.
Paul Savas.
So he's the one that lives in.
That's correct.
How far east, what like east is the furthest park? I'm just.
Sorry, pull up the map.
Yeah,
No,
And where is it on the west side?
Pretty close to it.
I believe there is one. Let's see.
there
If
is.
you don't want to touch it.
And then I'm
Sorry, I can look this up if there's a.
Nope.
No,
There's a map.
I
I'm
have
just curious, I'm just curious,
information.
'cause
I also
I'm
have a hard
surprised that there's
copy
only
map
one living in.
that I carry around. So,
That's perfect, yeah.
so Trillium
Oh, sure.
is the furthest, but
Yeah,
it
sure.
actually is bifurcated by
Yeah.
some non-NCPRD area. So that's a map of our district.
Wow.
Interesting.
Oh,
And
thank
then-
you.
And then the line in the middle is I-205.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Cool.
exactly. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Sure.
And then my other, this is
Isn't
another
that Andy?
stupid
That's
question,
wonderful.
is, for the meeting, I tend to dress pretty casual like this, is that?
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
Yep,
Wasn't anything.
we're fairly casual in parks too.
Good, good.
The only other thing, how do the 5 sub-areas on the DAC overlay the 3 SDCs areas? That seems also confusing.
They do not line up
That's what
perfectly, I
I was
don't think. I
wondering.
think your map has,
Oh, it has both.
it won't have both, but it will have. So those are the different
These are
areas.
the DAC sub areas. And so, and roughly, the Milwaukee, sub area and UGMA are contained within this area,
Mhm.
correct?
Yeah.
And then I don't know the boundaries of the other SDC zones, maybe we
I
have
wanna
that.
say this is,
There's both.
okay, so yeah, sub area 4 and sub area 5 are pretty much zone 1.
Mhm.
Sub area 2, sub area 1 is zone 2, and zone 3 is sub area 3.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does some of
But I
zone
think it-
3, does it include some of that area that's just immediately east of I-205?
I believe so.
Cause I think
Okay.
the UGMA from Milwaukee only goes to like 82nd. I don't think it goes beyond.
Yeah, I think there's some overlapping here, but there's like the general area, like I think that Milwaukee and sub area 4 go down into sub area 2, like there's like a,
Mhm. That makes sense.
That actually would be an interesting map.
yeah, it would.
I'll try to
Yeah,
see if I can
overlay.
overlay it, yeah. Mm-hmm, that's a great question.
And the assessor's office, sorry. The assessor's office, we're not paying property taxes, right? That's just to get the actual valuation.
Correct, yes, so the assessor's office, we file our intention to assess taxes, so that's that due date and.
Oh, the opposite end. Okay,
Yes.
got it.
And so, so we send them the intention to assess with the amount and the anticipated rate and all.
That makes more sense now.
Yes, yes,
Obviously.
yes, no, we don't, the district, yes, because we're a government entity, doesn't pay.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean.
That's, yeah, thank you.
But that's a really great question, so please, yeah, ask those types of questions. And another, I'm going to anticipate another question too, which might be, and I'll just say it since we're recording this, is that I think it's really important to understand the distinction between general fund, which we get from our tax base, and then system development charge funds, and we cannot use system development charge funds for general operations. We can only use those funds, those system development charge funds, for capital projects that increase the capacity of the district to support more growth. So we can't use system development charge funds to renovate an existing park unless the renovations include new things that increase the capacity of that park to accommodate growth in the district. So, so there's a bit of a fine line there. Sometimes it is incorrectly assumed that we can do renovations to landscape with SDC funds. We can't. Now, we could build a pickleball court or we could build recreation fields if it's just a kind of an underutilized portion of a park that would increase the capacity of that park to accommodate growth. But general fund can be used for capital projects. And our general fund not only pays for operations, like all of the staff to run recreation programs and to maintain things. And on some of our capital projects, we need to backfill with general fund, but also right now we don't have a dedicated fund for capital repairs and replacement. So like replacing the roof on this 30-year-old facility, we can't use system development charge funds because that's not going to increase the capacity of the district to accommodate new growth. So we have to use general fund revenue or grants or, or other external money. But we have to use that tax base. So when Mark was talking very correctly about this tax base, the tax rate that was set in 1990, you can imagine, if you just think about your own lives, how much inflation has increased over time, healthcare, just the cost of an hourly wage, supplies and materials. So, so paying for people and supplies and major capital repairs and equipment replacement has become very challenging with that existing tax rate.
Yeah, it's around the last time we tried to raise that.
Yeah, well, and we think we are possibly better positioned this time because we're going to be completing the system plan, again, as Mark mentioned. And that will really give us a playbook that has community support and is driven by the community to guide how we invest our limited resources. And so we'll get a prioritized list of capital projects. And we'll also better understand what kind of programs the community wants as well. I'm also going to add, you might have seen when Director Savas, I call him Director Savas, because
sorry,
he's,
yeah.
no, don't be sorry, but he's a county commissioner
Yeah,
too. When Director Savas was, when the topic of appointing new budget committee members was before the board, he brought up his concern about the budget process, and I hear him clearly. I think he had a great point, which is you can't just do a budget for, a couple of months a year and call it good. And we expect you to come in and absorb a lot in a very short period of time. And we want to do better. So, Callie has actually been instrumental in putting together a budget forecast scenario. The first one was unveiled to the board and to the DAC in March. And since that time, we've pulled some additional levers. We've, for example, put a little more system development charge money into a district-wide capital project, and pulled out some of that general fund. And so that actually gives us more runway before we start to really see our resources get to a point where they can't cover operations. And so we have a couple of new scenarios that we're going to bring forward, but our intention is to start having a budget conversation year round. And I don't know if that's going to be a DAC subcommittee or a separate budget committee, little b, little c. But we'll figure out the process, but late summer, early fall is when we're thinking about convening this group. If you have some thoughts about that, please, let's talk offline. And what we'd like to do is make sure that we really look at these forecast scenarios so that we are allocating our resources through the budget process with that longer look in mind. And because if we don't get an increase in the tax rate, we of course want to sustain the financial stability of the district for as long as possible and continue all of the programs and services as much as we possibly can, and continue to roll out a few new capital projects every few years so that we're continuing to serve growth. So stay tuned for that. But if you're interested in that, or if you have some opinions about how we should be running that, let me know. Again, we'll start that up late summer, early fall, and we'll just have a few meetings. I'm thinking probably 2 or 3 meetings, and that will be a precursor to the next budget process, which typically starts in late fall.
I just want to say on that with City of Milwaukee stuff that I've done. We do quarterly meetings, and maybe NCPRD doesn't do quarterly, but those have been so instrumental in the budget process right now for me to have a better
Okay.
idea of everything. I definitely like coming in warmer than coming in cold to
Yeah.
a meeting when seen a couple of updates on where funds are, and where expenditures are. I honestly, the biggest thing for us is always like you have, it's the capital improvement stuff where you have. $6 million of cash sitting in something and then, the. Was supposed to start, but because of COVID or increased
Mhm.
costs, it has to be moved to a different date, so it's good to get those updates so that. We're
Mhm.
not saying, wow, we went way under budget, well, no, we didn't,
Yeah,
it's just next year, the roof is being fixed or whatever. it is.
yes,
Yeah,
yes. And that's a great point. And I would say to that point, sometimes it looks like we have a lot of cash because of our reserves.
Yeah.
Well, our reserves, that's the only piggy bank for roof failures, and that's in perpetuity. Like, that's it, folks. Other than that savings bank, we don't have any other stash of money. So it looks like we have a lot of money, but it goes pretty quickly, and we really need to keep those reserves.
Yeah.
And most of it is restricted.
Yes,
yes,
yes. Yeah.
but you never want to get below zero. That was at last week's meeting, there was a really good question someone asked, which was like, what happens if we do get below zero? It's bad, state comes in.
We
Yeah,
don't do
has to
that.
take-
We avoid that.
Well, that's like Orange County. You
Oh,
remember?
really?
Yeah, wasn't that Orange County? Years ago, I think it was, there was a county, in Southern California that went bankrupt.
Oh, wow.
I think Detroit went under a special conservatorship as well.
Like Michigan.
Stockton
Okay.
also had a
Okay.
bankruptcy,
Yeah.
municipal bankruptcy.
Wow.
So it happens, and
Yeah.
so it actually is really important for
Yeah.
citizens like yourself to be an extra pair of eyes
Yeah.
looking at the budget, because we need a lot of expertise to think about all of the different variables that might impact our budget stability.
I have one more question, sorry, a lot of questions. This is not one way or another, anything with this, and this could be something that like, we can't talk about till the budget process is like displayed, and if it is, no worries. I was just curious because I know it's been a bigger news story, I would say, for, districts like, Parks District or something like that. The Wichita Center, is that something that's gonna be part of this process, or is that already in the sales stage or anything like that?
That's a great question. So we have not reflected any change in
Okay,
our
that's
revenues or
nice.
expenditures for Wichita because there's a negotiation that's underway.
So it's,
And I can't say that from my perspective, I don't have a time frame.
Yeah.
So we're just maintaining status quo.
okay, yeah, perfect.
But that's a
exactly-
perfect
yeah.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know that's again, bigger news story than the roof here, or something,
Mhm.
unless the roof fell.
No, the roof here,
The roof's good. right?
yes. Yes, the roof is just fine. We are going to look at replacing the roof within the next year or two because it's a 30-year roof. And because of the sensitivity of the operations, and we've patched it a couple of times already here and there, we want to get ahead of a replacement. So we don't want to wait for a failure before we do a replacement. So we will be looking at a full replacement probably within a year or two. And we have to, of course, make sure that it's during a period where we don't have an active use of the facility. We think we can still use the facility and operate it to some degree inside, but we just want to be sensitive to noise and smell and things like that.
Gotcha. I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan, so roofs, and,
I've seen,
Yeah.
I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
it's, it's a sensitive subject. Thank you so much, these are really helpful.
Good, good. And we're always available for questions, so you don't have to keep your questions just to this meeting. If you think of anything, ping one of us.
Yep.
Whoever you think might be the right person to answer your question.
And it's the same disclosure stuff that we message you guys directly, we don't CC everyone, because if you do, it's.
Public meeting.
Yeah. it's a
That's right.
public meeting. Okay.
Yeah.
And when we, next week, when we have the budget, when it becomes a public document, if you have questions or you want to talk about it, we can have one-on-one meetings. It's really up to what you guys prefer. with that, so. You could save your questions for the meeting, or we could meet, we could have a Zoom, we could talk on the phone, email, everybody likes to communicate differently. So.
And if you're comfortable sharing your question in advance, if you can send it to Kelly, that would be really helpful, because then we can make sure that we provide a really good answer, a detailed answer. But you can also save it if you'd like, that's fine too.
Yeah.
Try not to, I'll try not to, we'll come up with the questions prior.
Yeah,
I understand, I don't wanna be,
Well, we can just provide a
Yeah.
probably more thorough response.
right.
But we're ready to talk off the cuff as well.
Yeah, I'm the Milwaukee person that is always messaging the finance person a couple days in advance of the
Good.
meeting, so.
Good.
It's good to know you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and do you want those questions to go to you, Kelly? And do you want to be the central
Sure.
receptacle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Kia, if it's okay, there was one other thing I just wanted to communicate to the budget committee, if I may, for just a
Sure.
moment. It has to do with what I kind of call the push and pull of wants versus money, you know, what people want versus how much money there is to pay, to spend. And it's kind of a catch-22 in a way that folks want more parks, they want more programs. However, our budget doesn't really increase as a result of that. And a good example of that is that within the next year or two, we are bringing on 2 new parks. We're bringing on a new community center. All of those facilities have to be maintained and staffed. And we're still doing that within the budget that under the tax structure that we currently have. And so I see your job as the budget committee being really instrumental, but I don't envy you for trying to figure out how to make all of that work when we are expanding services and expanding properties without expanding our revenue. So that it is a little bit of catch-22 that I feel is imbalanced as far as how we look at the future. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mark. Certainly it's on my mind. And that I don't want to put it on the shoulders of the budget committee, but I would really appreciate if you have any feedback in the budget with regard to that. Please feel welcome to share it, but it's definitely on the top of all of our minds as we look ahead. I think it will probably, it'll definitely hit in fiscal year 25-26. We don't expect that building to really come online until late summer of 2025 next year. But your point is really well taken, Mark. Anything else? Okay, all right. With that, do we want to adjourn?
We adjourn.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.